They say every betrayal begins with trust. I boarded that flight trusting my wife. Only one of us flew back. The airport buzzed with the type of energy only a midsummer morning in Sweden could carry, cool air threading through open glass corridors, sunlight that refused to dim, and families hurting toward baggage claims or coffee counters exhausted but intact. I stood alone by gate F-26 at Stockholm Arlanda, my carry-on still slung over one shoulder, a paper boarding pass crumpling in my grip. She told me the day before, relax. I booked everything. Just follow my lead. I had. Like I always did. Madison was the planner, the social conductor, the one with surprise brunches, curated playlists, secret itineraries wrapped in ribbon. Our surprise vacation had sounded spontaneous, playful, marriage-affirming. Until it wasn't. 10 minutes past final boarding call, I stared at the screen above me. Denver International Flight, SK943. Departed. That couldn't be right. We were supposed to fly together. I moved toward the gate agent, a tall blonde woman with a friendly but guarded smile. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I think there's been a mix-up. My wife, Madison Harper, she should have been on that flight with me." She tapped a few keys, then looked up. "Yes." Madison Harper checked in and boarded. I blinked. "Are you sure she boarded about 30 minutes before final call?" But I didn't see her. Maybe she entered early. Some passengers do that to relax at their seat. No, Madison didn't relax. She held court until the last possible moment, chatting at duty-free or double-checking if she left her lip gloss at security. We always walked onto flights together. I reached for my phone. One notification, one message. "See you in Denver. You'll survive." That was it. No context, no joke, just a winking face and an insinuation that this was fine. I called her. Voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. "Madison," I muttered under my breath. "This isn't funny." Around me, travelers drifted toward their next destinations. Families with matching neck pillows, couples laughing over shared snacks, a guy in flip-flops talking loudly about Bitcoin. Everyone belonged somewhere, except me. I moved away from the gate, sat at a cold metal bench near a window overlooking the tarmac. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, not yet, but from a growing sense that something sacred had cracked. I wasn't just confused. I was being humiliated. The silence between rings became more deafening than the voicemail tone itself. I replayed the last few days. The oddly cheerful tone in her voice, the way she kept deflecting any mention of trip details. Don't spoil the magic, she'd said. Trust me, I always had. But this was something else. This wasn't a prank. Pranks have punchlines. This had detachment, calculation, and that damn smiley face. I scrolled through our message history. Nothing alarming. Just the usual back-and-forth photos of our breakfast, a sarcastic comment about the slow hotel elevator, her quick selfie in front of the Vasa Museum. I looked again at the timestamp of her last message, sent right after I left the hotel to buy a coffee. She must have arranged everything while I was out, pre-booked a taxi, went straight to the airport, checked in early, boarded, and never looked back. Why? Was it a dare? A punishment? A twisted joke for her friends to laugh at later? Or something deeper? The idea that it wasn't meant to be funny clawed at me. I stood up, heart thudding against my ribs, nausea rolling beneath my chest like a wave that wouldn't crest. I walked toward the information desk and asked if I could check flight records again. They declined politely. "I'm not a victim," I said quietly to myself. "I'm just delayed." But even that felt like a lie. I wandered back toward the bench. In my periphery, a janitor swept the polished floor. A teenage girl snapped selfies with a souvenir elk plushie. Life undisturbed. Except mine. She left me. For real. The words tumbled out before I realized I'd said them aloud. Just 4 syllables, but they cemented a new reality, one I hadn't prepared for. My body felt like it was suspended in place, a human glitch no longer synced with its environment. A flash of red entered my line of sight. A stranger, a woman maybe mid-30s wearing a scarlet scarf and holding a canvas tote, stopped a few feet away. Her eyes lingered on me, uncertain. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I said nothing. Every single view means a meal for someone in need. Just by watching this video, you're giving warmth, hope, and a full plate to those less fortunate. So watch now, share now, subscribe to the channel, and let's spread love together. The worst kind of fight is the one where only one person knows they're in it. The lobby of the Grand Nordic Hotel smelled faintly of sandalwood and fresh coffee. Outside, a soft rain blurred the tall windows, Stockholm's streets soaking in silver. I approached the check-in counter like a man walking into his own autopsy. The receptionist, a young man with kind eyes and excellent English, greeted me with the sort of detached politeness you reserve for solo travelers. "I have a reservation," I said, voice low. "Under Jack Harper." He tapped his keyboard, nodding as if I'd passed a test. "Yes, room 714. It's prepaid with breakfast included." "Prepaid, yes, all covered by Mrs. Harper. She checked in the day before yesterday." A silence lodged itself between us. I nodded slowly, trying to feign indifference as he handed me the keycard and a folded receipt. She had planned this, booked the room under my name. The illusion of inclusion. A setup so clean it made my stomach turn. As I rode the elevator up, rain tapped steadily against the glass shaft. I stared at my reflection in the brushed steel door shirt, wrinkled hair, flat expression unreadable. I looked like someone who'd lost something but couldn't name what. In the room, I dropped my bag onto the chair and let out a long breath. It was a nice room, stylish but sterile. A minimalist painting of birch trees hung above the bed. A bottle of sparkling water waited on the desk with a note in cursive script: "Welcome to your Scandinavian sanctuary." The irony wasn't lost on me. I sat down, pulled out the hotel notepad, and wrote a single sentence. "Maybe I've been slowly erased." I stared at the words until they lost meaning, just curves and slashes on a white page. Then the memories began, uninvited. Madison at brunch with my sister, interrupting every story I tried to tell with a sarcastic punchline. "That's Jack for you, always the sentimental one." Or the time she accidentally canceled our brunch reservation with my parents. "Oops, I thought you said next Sunday." She hadn't. I'd told her twice. She smiled sweetly and suggested we go antique shopping instead. Or when I noticed our joint bank account had new restrictions, little things at first: spending alerts, limit caps. "Just so we're both more conscious," she said with a wink. "You're not the best with impulse buys." She made control look like concern. It was never an argument, never a confrontation. Just her smile wrapped around another decision I didn't make. I lay back on the bed, arm across my forehead, and listened to the rain become steadier. The room felt too quiet. I turned on the TV but couldn't focus. Swedish voices filled the air but didn't reach me. I skipped dinner the first night. The second night, I forced myself downstairs to the hotel restaurant. I asked for a corner table away from the windows and ordered something simple: grilled salmon and water. My voice cracked when I spoke to the waitress. At the table beside me, a group of colleagues laughed so loudly it felt like mockery. Their inside jokes bounced between them like warm light. One of them said something about missing a flight, and the whole table burst into giggles. I looked down at my plate, the food untouched, and realized I didn't know how to exist alone in public anymore, not without her acting as my translator, my buffer. I was invisible. Worse, I had been made invisible. After dinner, I went back to the room and opened my phone again. That message still hovered at the top. "See you in Denver. You'll survive." The emoji glared back at me, something childish and cruel in its cheeriness. I whispered aloud, I don't think that was meant as comfort. Because it wasn't. It was a confirmation. A signature at the bottom of a betrayal she'd orchestrated with precision. She didn't throw plates. She didn't scream. She sliced you slowly until you weren't sure if the bleeding had even begun. I turned off the lights, trying to coax myself into sleep, but my mind refused the mercy of rest. I scrolled mindlessly through old photos, Madison in Paris, Madison in Arizona, Madison in our kitchen back in Denver, pouring wine and laughing with half-closed eyes. My finger hovered over the delete button, but I couldn't press it. The phone buzzed. New message. Unknown number. Still alive, Jack. She didn't ask what happened. She asked what I wanted to do about it. The rain hadn't stopped. It fell in soft sheets, whispering against the cobblestones of the old city and the museum's glass awning. I ducked under the overhang, shaking water from my coat sleeves as I stepped into the Moderna Museet. The world smelled of wet wool, espresso, and varnished wood. Stockholm in the rain somehow made being alone feel less humiliating, more earned. The cafe inside the museum was half empty. Low chatter murmured beneath the clinking of porcelain cups and the gentle hiss of a milk steamer. I ordered a black coffee, no sugar, and looked around for a quiet place to disappear into. That's when I saw her. Red scarf. Same calm posture. Same unreadable eyes. She was sitting by the window, sketchbook open but untouched. A half-empty mug beside her. The woman from the airport. She looked up and didn't blink. I hesitated, my instincts telling me to walk away to protect whatever thin shell I had left. But then she tilted her head just slightly and gestured to the chair across from her. No smile. No question. Just space. I sat down. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was deliberate. She studied me the way you'd look at something that wasn't broken but had definitely been dropped. "You're not a tourist?" she said eventually. "I am. Technically. You looked like someone who didn't want to be seen." Her voice was soft but direct. The kind of tone that didn't invite lies. I nodded, took a sip of my coffee. I was left. At the airport? "I know. You do. You didn't move for at least 5 minutes. People only stay that still when they're stunned or surrendering." She didn't say it with pity. Just observation. Like weather. "I expected you to ask what happened," I said. She shrugged. "Why does it help to explain it?" "No." She leaned back. "People here don't force healing. We just make space for it." There was something unpolished about her, no makeup, hair damp from the rain, and yet she looked grounded, like she belonged to the moment in a way I hadn't in years. "What's your name?" I asked. "Elsa? Jack?" She nodded. "You look like a Jack." Slightly tired but still upright. I laughed, or tried to. It came out brittle. "I build bridges." I said, not sure why I offered that piece of myself. "Civil engineer. I like symmetry. Measurable outcomes. Things that stay standing." Her gaze didn't drift. "Is that how you understand people too?" "I used to think so." "And your wife?" I didn't flinch at the mention, though. The word felt like it belonged to someone else now. Madison was different. Charming. Strategic. Everything had a reason, even if she didn't share it. Elsa waited. I wasn't sure for what. "I married someone who makes people laugh in public," I said, staring into my cup, but then corrects their grammar in private. "Who offers surprises she controls every aspect of." She made it all look like a dance, and I kept stepping where she led. "That sounds exhausting." It was flattering at first. We watched the rain for a while. Somewhere in the cafe, someone's phone buzzed but went ignored. "I build things that never fall," I said, half laughing, shaking my head at my own irony. "But I married someone who tears things down for fun." Elsa didn't flinch. "What if you built something for yourself this time?" I looked at her, then really looked. She wasn't inviting anything more than reflection. No pity, No seduction, just the kind of stillness you forgot existed until someone handed it to you. The rain pressed gently against the windows. I didn't answer her question. Not yet. Every story I told about us started with we. Today, I start one with I. The storm rolled in around 9 p.m., swallowing what was left of Stockholm's twilight. My hotel room flickered with the occasional flash of lightning, but it was the thunder that made me feel like the sky was pacing. Restless, like me. I sat cross-legged on the edge of the bed, laptop open screen, brightness turned down low. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, uncertain if what I was about to do counted as healing or just digging into scar tissue. The login page for my old blog still worked. Jack Writes Things, last updated August 2019. Back then, I had written about engineering metaphors, city bridges, the physics of weight distribution. Boring to most people. But it had been mine, until Madison read one of my posts and told me it lacked polish. After that, she began helping me edit everything. Eventually, I stopped writing. She said it saved time. I said nothing. I opened my email archive next. Not the inbox drafts. Dozens of them. All familiar. All ghost-written in her tone, but under my name. I'm sorry you felt that way. I didn't intend to upset you. Let's both try harder going forward. She had dictated most of them. I remembered one night before a work event where I was set to present a company award. I wanted to speak about mentorship. Madison had rewritten my speech to focus on efficiency metrics instead. You'll sound smarter, she'd said, sipping her wine. Less sentimental. I'd read it verbatim like a stranger reading from a teleprompter. I got compliments afterward, but none of them felt earned. Now, staring at the unsent drafts, I could see it so clearly, her fingerprint on my mouth. A notification popped up. Elsa, try writing again. No emojis, no pressure. Just a sentence shaped like an open door. I opened a blank document on the blog. Titled it, 10 Things I Couldn't Say in My Marriage. And I wrote, I didn't find your sarcasm funny. I hated apologizing for things you did. I liked my handwriting. You said it looked messy, so I stopped writing cards. I don't think partnership means one person leads while the other stays silent. I loved Sunday mornings. You hated that I didn't want to do something productive. You didn't like how my mother talked. I stopped calling her as much. I was afraid to buy anything without asking. You knew my fears and fed them back to me as jokes. I forgot what my voice sounded like when I wasn't editing it for you. I'm not broken, just bruised. I didn't post it, but I saved it. Draft Joradarm 66, the only one that sounded like me. The storm outside deepened, casting jagged shadows across the room. I watched the rain carve lines down the window and felt something that wasn't quite peace, but wasn't paralysis either. I stared at the screen a moment longer, then typed another sentence under the 10th point. Sometimes silence isn't peace, it's control. I leaned back, exhaled. It wasn't a scream, it wasn't vengeance, but it was a start. My phone buzzed. Elsa. There's a place I want to show you. You'll need boots. She took me to a place not listed in tourist maps. I left a part of myself there on purpose. It was just after dawn when Elsa picked me up. The streets of Stockholm were still rubbing the sleep from their cobblestones, and the rain had finally let up, replaced by a heavy fog that hung like wool over the city. She didn't say much, just handed me a thermos of black coffee and nodded toward the ferry dock. No one else was there. Just the two of us, bundled in layers, our breath visible in the sharp morning air. The ferry took us east through scattered islands and quiet waters until it felt like the world behind us had been folded away. We got off at a small jetty where only birds seemed to live. We hiked in silence, boots crunching against wet pine needles and soft gravel. Elsa led confidently, like someone walking through a memory instead of a forest. Eventually we reached it. A stone bridge, short, curved with moss between the seams and mist curling beneath it. It arched over a narrow ribbon of seawater leading to nowhere in particular. No plaque, no name, No tourists. She stopped in front of it, hand on the cool stone eyes far away. I used to come here when I didn't know how to fix things, she said. When I was a teenager, I thought silence could stitch anything together as long as you held your breath long enough. I didn't interrupt. The wind pushed against us gently like a reminder to stay present. I'd sit right there. She pointed to the far side. And imagine building something strong enough to hold everything I didn't say. We crossed the bridge slowly, not speaking. Halfway across, she turned to me. You said you build bridges. I nodded. First one I designed was for a park in Oregon. Nothing major, just a footbridge across a seasonal stream. Did you like it? I was proud of it. Until Madison saw the plans. She laughed and said it looked like something a kid would draw with a crayon. Said I should aim for real architecture if I ever wanted to be taken seriously. Elsa didn't wince. She didn't comfort. She just looked out across the fog and let the moment echo. I pulled out my pocket notebook, one I hadn't touched in years, and leaning against the side of the bridge began sketching. Same concept, same dimensions. But this time I made it thicker at the base, more grounded, less concerned with elegance. Elsa peered over my shoulder. What's different? It's not trying to impress anyone, I said. It just wants to hold. She smiled faintly. Maybe it doesn't have to impress anyone. Maybe it just needs to hold. I looked up at her. Really looked. And for a second I wondered how long it had been since someone gave me permission to exist without performance. I nodded slowly. That's more than she ever let me do. We sat on the edge of the bridge for a while, sharing the thermos-trading silences that didn't need filling. A fisherman passed below in a rowboat and waved. Elsa waved back. I did too. Somewhere in the fog behind us, the city kept ticking forward, unaware that something had shifted. Slightly, quietly, but undeniably. As we waited for the return ferry, I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Madison's name for a long time. Then I typed, Elsa's been really sweet. No context, no question, just bait. I hit send, put the phone away. Let the bridge have it. Silence can scream louder than shouting, especially when she's used to controlling the volume. The harbor was quiet that morning, a pocket of calm tucked between gray waters and the low hum of dock workers setting up for the day. I sat on a cold bench near the ferry terminal, sipping coffee that had long since gone cold. I wasn't here to move. I was here to wait. For nothing. And for everything. The message I sent Madison the day before still hung in the digital air, simple and sharpened like a needle. Elsa's been really sweet. No emojis, no context, no follow-up. By the time I checked my phone, I had 6 unread messages. Madison sweet. Who even says that? So you're seeing someone already? Was that the plan all along? Honestly, Jack, if you wanted out, you could have just said it. I guess Sweden suits you. All cold and distant. Wow. Radio silence. Classic. Just say something. I didn't reply. I watched a ferry ease out of the harbor, barely leaving a ripple behind. The absence of sound between messages was louder than anything she could have screamed. When we fought in the past, it always followed a script. She'd poke, I'd retreat. She'd demand clarity. I'd apologize for not being clearer. Then came the wrap-up text, glad we talked. Except we never really had. But this time, I didn't take the bait. She did. I tapped into my voicemail archive, scrolled to the most recent entry time-stamped just 3 hours ago, played it on low volume. Her voice was cracked at the edges, crying but trying not to sound like it. Jack, just say something. Please. I know you're mad. Or maybe you're playing games, I don't know. But I didn't mean to actually hurt you. I thought it would be funny, just light. Come on, talk to me. Please, just say something. It wasn't anger. Not this time. It was disbelief. Madison had always been the one to end conversations, walk out mid-discussion. Drop final lines like "we're done here" or "you're being too emotional." But now silence was turned on her, and it rattled her bones. Elsa passed behind me on the boardwalk carrying a tote bag of groceries. She didn't stop, just smiled gently as she passed, like she could see the static in my chest, but trusted I'd tune it myself. A few minutes later, my phone rang. Matt, old friend, ex-roommate, one of the few constants left. "Hey man," I said, surprised to hear my own voice after so much internal noise. "Jack. Dude. Everything okay?" I laughed dry and short. "Define okay. You sound, I don't know, detached. Accurate. What's going on?" "I think I baited her," I said slowly, watching another fairy doc. "And it worked." Matt whistled. "Damn. Madison." "Yeah. Good. Honestly good. She's spun this whole thing for years. She's unraveling now. You should have heard her voicemail." Matt was quiet for a second. "You're not going back, are you?" "No." I paused. My thumb hovered over Madison's name on my message thread. I could still feel the weight of her texts, all those lines wrapped in accusation, fear, and manipulation. I didn't overthink it. I typed, noted, goodbye, hit send. Then I blocked the number. Not in anger. In peace. "Matt," I said, still holding the phone to my ear. "Yeah. You ever feel like someone was writing your story for you?" He laughed. "All the time." He hesitated, then added, "You should talk to Claire." I froze. "Claire. She's got stuff she never told you. About Madison. About back then." I didn't want to get in the middle, but you might want to hear it now. Claire. I hadn't heard her name in almost a year. She'd been the only one who looked nervous at our wedding. I should have asked why, but I didn't. Maybe now I would. Claire saw it before I did. I mistook her silence for disinterest. She mistook mine for agreement. Her face blinked onto the screen with a shaky video connection and a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Claire was in her apartment in Denver, the walls behind her peppered with small framed sketches and a leaning bookshelf she'd probably built herself. She'd always liked building things same as me, but the kind of things that had nothing to prove. "Hey," she said, voice flat, but not cold. "Hey," I echoed, trying to find a foothold in a conversation I should have had years ago. The silence between us felt rehearsed, familiar, and still I didn't know my lines. She folded her arms and leaned back. "So, Sweden." I gave a tired smile. "It's colder than I thought." A beat passed. "You talked to Matt?" She said, not a question. "Yeah. He told you I had things I never said. Did you?" She nodded, then stood up, disappearing from the frame for a few seconds. When she returned, she had her phone. I heard the clicks as she scrolled. Then she turned the screen toward the camera. "You remember this number?" My stomach dipped. The contact name read Jack. I squinted at the thread. The timestamp was years old. 2:14 a.m. Claire tapped on a message. "Jack, Claire, stop being needy. Jack's got a real family now." I blinked. "Wait. That you were asleep?" she said quietly. That's what I figured out later. Another screenshot. Same thread. Same night. "Claire. What's that supposed to mean, Jack?" "It means grow up. Don't drag him down with your insecurities." I stared at the words, nauseated. They looked like mine. Short. Direct. Cold. But I'd never written them. Not once. "She texted you?" I said the words, trying to arrange themselves. "From my phone." Claire nodded. "You used to leave it charging by the bed when you visited us. She had your password. She'd check it sometimes when you were in the shower. Once you fell asleep early and I texted to ask if we could have brunch the next morning. And she replied, posing as you, said you didn't have time for clingy siblings." I closed my eyes. My throat tightened. "You never told me? I thought you wrote it, Jack. I thought you meant it. But you didn't confront me?" I was tired of begging for scraps. "You looked happy? Or numb?" I couldn't tell. Either way, I thought I'd lost you. My hands curled into fists under the desk. She didn't just isolate me from you, I said, voice low. She made you believe I chose it. Claire's eyes glistened, but she blinked it away like someone trained in holding storms. She didn't want you to have a mirror, Jack. Not one that showed you how small she was making you. I looked down. Let the words settle like dust. I wanted to scream, punch something, apologize, but none of it would unwrite those messages. None of it would give Claire those years back. I'm sorry, I whispered. She nodded once. Me too. But I don't need sorry. I need honesty. I can do that now. She let out a quiet breath. Good. Because there's something else. I looked up. You're not the only one, she cut off. She said, her voice dropping into a note of reluctant truth. There's someone else. There's a special kind of vengeance in not replying. It makes them reply to themselves. I sat in the dim glow of my hotel room, the silence humming louder than any conversation I could have had. The printer by the desk gave a quiet whir, slowly feeding out sheet after sheet, each one a page of history I could no longer pretend didn't exist. Screenshots, emails, drafts of messages never sent. A record not just of what happened, but of what I allowed to keep happening. I named the folder on my laptop, When This Gets Real. Inside it, I placed everything. Journal entries from the last few days. Screenshots Claire sent. Old messages that made my blood chill, not for what they said, but for how familiar they once felt. There was even a voice recording Madison had sent me during our first year of marriage. Back then, it felt like love. Listening now, it sounded like ownership. In the recording, she said, "If you ever think of walking away, remember I made you who you are. Without me, you're just unfinished." I'd listened to that for years like it was a vow. Now I heard it for what it was, a warning. The knock at the door was soft. I didn't jump. Elsa stood there holding a paper bag of cardamom buns and a thermos. I brought peace offerings, she said, offering a small smile. I stepped aside and let her in. She glanced at the papers scattered across the desk. Are you suing her? No, I said. Not yet. She set the bag down and leaned on the counter. Then what are you doing? Documenting. Preparing, in case she tries to rewrite everything again. Elsa studied me, then nodded slowly. That's not fear. That's architecture. I raised an eyebrow. Architecture. You're not defending yourself. You're designing a structure to hold truth. Big difference. I almost smiled. I sat back down, opened the document I'd been editing. A simple timeline of events, dates, screenshots, journal excerpts. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but it felt like claiming oxygen. Can I ask you something? I said. Sure. Have you ever let someone destroy your reputation just to keep the peace? She didn't answer right away. Then, yes. But peace didn't return the favor. The thermos clicked as she poured us coffee. Outside, the clouds clung low to the city like a secret trying to stay hidden. We didn't say much more. We didn't have to. Later that night, I checked my phone. More messages from Madison. Madison, wow. So now you're playing victim. You think Claire is your savior? She didn't even show up at our wedding. I'm starting to think you were never really present in our marriage. You were just quiet. I don't know who you are anymore. And it's kind of terrifying. I didn't respond. I just read them, let each one pass like a wave that no longer moved me. She was unraveling. She didn't know what to do with the vacuum of power where my reactions used to be. I opened my cloud drive. Uploaded When This Gets Real, and created a timed link, one that would auto-send to Claire and Matt in exactly 72 hours if I didn't cancel it. Insurance. Not because I was afraid, because I was no longer naive. Before bed, I opened the message thread one last time. Madison. You think you're in control now? I'm on a plane. We'll see who looks fake face to face. I locked my phone, sat in the dark, let the silence do its work. She doesn't know I already left the battlefield. She's shadowboxing, and I'm just watching the dust. The library was quiet in a way that wrapped around your ribs, not just your ears. The kind of silence that felt earned, held together by intention. Not like the silence Madison used to weaponize, where every pause came laced with a ticking bomb. I was seated at a windowed desk on the second floor of the Stockholm Public Library. Documents spread around me like the final assembly of something long in the making. No rush, no adrenaline, just preparation, cold, precise, done. Claire had emailed a PDF that morning. A quiet ping had lit up my phone. Subject, one more truth. It was a co-signed financial account. My name, her name. Created 2 years ago. An investment fund in Denver I never knew existed. Her signature. My forged one. A balance that had once been significant drained in steady, silent withdrawals. The paperwork was crisp. The timestamps weren't. I pressed print. A few minutes later, Elsa's voice floated over my shoulder. Researching or writing your manifesto? I turned. She was in a gray wool coat, hair damp from light rain, holding 2 cups of black coffee. Both, I said, accepting one of the cups. She sat across from me without asking. Looked at the spread of pages, the PDF, the scribbled notes. You're not just defending yourself. No, I said. This is closure. In folders. Elsa nodded. My ex used my name to buy a car after we broke up. Never drove it. Just let it rack up debt in my name. I looked up. What did you do? Paid it off. Burned the loan documents. Sent him a photo of the ashes. Never spoke to him again. I let out a soft laugh. That's a bit dramatic. No, she said. That was poetry. We sat in comfortable quiet for a while. I watched as she traced the rim of her cup with one finger. When she left, she simply said, "Let me know if you need more paper or gasoline." I turned back to the screen, opened a new document. Dear younger me, you never saw it coming. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you hopeful. Hopeful people get hit hardest. You doubted yourself because she made doubt look like caution and control look like care. But you weren't broken. You were interrupted. I stopped, stared at the blinking cursor, then typed the final line. You didn't deserve to be doubted. I printed the letter, folded it, and placed it with the others. It was ready if I needed to read it aloud. If I ever needed to say those words with someone watching. Next came the documents. I unzipped the folder from the Denver attorney I'd contacted days ago. A neatly prepared packet, tabs for each section. Divorce papers. Already signed. Already dated. Already done. I placed them into a leather folder, then leaned back and exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. My phone buzzed on the desk. Hotel message, guest Madison Harper just checked in. I didn't move, didn't panic, didn't even blink. The battlefield was behind me. She'd come to fight. But all she'd find was an empty arena and the echo of her own footsteps. She walked in like she owned the room. I stayed seated because she didn't. The afternoon sun spilled in through the glass walls of the hotel lounge, casting long shadows over the polished wood floor. I had chosen a seat near the center of the room, facing the entrance, not out of anticipation, but intention. I didn't want to be surprised. I wanted her to see me still. Madison Harper stepped through the lobby doors as if walking into a photo shoot. Perfect posture, signature scent trailing behind her, a white coat slung loosely over her shoulders like a cape. Her hair was curled, lipstick untouched. Not a wrinkle on her clothes, only the faintest one between her brows when she saw me already sitting there. She smiled like it meant something. I didn't smile back. She approached, heels clicking like punctuation marks. I half expected you to be halfway to the Arctic Circle, she said lightly, pulling out the chair across from me without asking. I said nothing. Just watched her. Quiet was a language she had never mastered. She sat, crossed her legs. Okay. Look, I know you're upset. You probably read too much into things. A soft laugh. You always did. Still, I didn't speak. That made her lean-in eyes narrowing. So, what's this dramatic act about ghosting me? Looping in Claire. Sending me that Elsa text like a warning shot. When she reached across the table, her fingers grazing mine, I moved my hand away. The air changed. Her smile wavered. Jack. Her voice dipped into something familiar. Low, sweet, meant to disarm. Don't do this. Not like this. I opened the folder slowly and pulled out the papers. No flourish. Just fact. You left me for laughs, I said quietly, setting the signed divorce documents between us. Now I leave you for clarity. She stared at them. Didn't touch. Then scoffed. So this is about her. That Swedish witch. No, I said, voice still even. It's not about her. It's about me. And I don't need your permission to start over. She blinked. Once. Twice. The silence stretched, not the kind she could use, but the kind that stripped her of every tactic she'd ever known. She stood abruptly. You think this makes you look strong? It makes you look weak. Like you needed an audience to grow a spine. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I let her rant into the emptiness. She picked up the papers. You'll regret this. I tilted my head. That's the difference, Madison. I used to. The lounge door opened behind her. Elsa stepped in quietly like a shadow that brought light. Her gaze swept the room, landed on Madison, then on me. She didn't say anything. I stood, buttoned my coat, looked at Elsa, not at Madison. You ready to leave? I asked. Elsa gave the smallest nod, and without looking back I walked past the woman who once built her power from my silence, finally done speaking her language. For years she trained me to fear her silence. Today, I weaponized mine. The sea was glass this morning, unmoving, cold, reflective. I walked the Vaxholm cliffs in a borrowed coat, the fabric heavier than expected, the wind lighter than I remembered. My phone buzzed in my pocket again, a vibration sharp enough to slice the quiet. I didn't check it. I knew who it was. She had already called 4 times. I waited for the 5th. When it came, I let it ring once, twice, then answered. I didn't say hello. Madison's voice came through, brittle and burning. So this is who you are now, with your little Stockholm rebound. That's the man you've decided to be? I stopped at the edge of the cliff. Below the rocks were dark, jagged, unwavering. I'm the man who stopped lying to himself, I said. Are you? She laughed. Not the real kind. The laugh she used at charity galas and networking events, expensive, hollow, rehearsed. That's rich. You act like you've been held hostage. Grow up, Jack. You got embarrassed. So what? I took a joke too far. I didn't respond. Silence. Then the whiplash pivot. I was under pressure. I needed space. You were suffocating. Do you know how hard it is to love someone who needs to be rescued from their own mediocrity? Still, I said nothing. Say something, she snapped. I could hear her pacing. I imagined her in that hotel room, untouched makeup bag, open shoes still on the control slipping through her fingers. This isn't a negotiation, I said finally. This is an ending. And I won't carry your confusion into my future. She fell silent. For once, it wasn't power. It was panic. Then I made you. I closed my eyes. The words didn't sting. Not anymore. No, I said. You muted me. But I rebuilt my voice. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough for me to hear her inhale, steadying herself for another tactic, maybe pity, maybe rage. I didn't let her finish. I pressed end call. No dramatic hang-up, no final insult. Just the soft click of release. The sea didn't change. The sky didn't darken. But something in me settled like the final piece of a broken thing finding its place again. Behind me, I heard soft footsteps on gravel. I didn't have to turn. I knew it was Elsa. She didn't speak, just waited. I looked at her. Really looked. The way people do when they're finally out of tunnels and into light. "I'm done with ghosts," I said. "Ready to meet the living." I never set out to expose her. But when the light hits a shattered mirror, it reflects everything. I clicked send with a hand steadier than I expected. The file, "When This Gets Real," left my inbox at exactly 9:00 a.m. Stockholm time. 7 recipients. No second guessing. Claire, Matt. 2 of Madison's oldest friends, both of whom stopped speaking to me years ago. My former boss. Madison's mentor, a woman who once told me I was lucky to have landed someone so vibrant. And me, just to have the timestamp. To say yes, I did this. Finally. The moment the email disappeared, the room seemed to expand. Like I'd been holding my breath in it for a year. I didn't write a message. The file spoke for itself. Screenshots, voicemails, my journal entries raw and unedited. Her words and her voice recorded on nights she didn't remember I'd been listening. Texts she sent from my phone to my sister. A scan of the financial account she forged. It wasn't curated for pity. It wasn't a manifesto. It was just evidence. Quiet, damning enough. I stood up and walked to the hotel window. Stockholm looked peaceful, untouched. Ferries drifted. Light skimmed the rooftops like gold dust. You wouldn't know a truth bomb had just gone off. My phone buzzed. "Claire, you finally told our story." I didn't cry. Not yet. But I closed my eyes and let her words sit on my chest like warmth through fabric. "Matt, about time you let them see who she really was, and who you've become." I smiled. Just a flicker. Then another message. This one without words. From Elsa. That simple. A symbol of regrowth. Or surrender. Or both. I took it as a blessing. I walked back to the desk, refreshed my inbox. Nothing yet from Madison. I didn't expect it. Not directly. She didn't like reacting publicly to things she couldn't spin. But the effects were already rippling. One of her friends replied to all, "Wow, I had no idea. I feel sick." Another email. Madison's mentor, the woman who introduced us. "We saw the signs. We failed you. But now we see you." I stared at that line until it blurred. Now we see you. Not we pity you. Not we hate her. Just, we see you. That's all I ever wanted. I opened social media. Just to breathe it in. I had posted one sentence there a few minutes after hitting send. "Truth delayed is not truth denied." It had a few likes already. One share. A few old colleagues reacting with the hesitant kind of engagement that says we're watching, unsure what to do. That was fine. This wasn't a campaign. It was a release. Then, without fanfare, I saw her name in the activity bar. Madison Harper updated her profile picture. I clicked. A gray square. Nothing else. No caption. No quote. No apology. Just silence. And for the first time, I didn't try to interpret it, because silence in her hands had always been a weapon. But now it was just a void I no longer lived inside. I closed the laptop, let the weight of years slide off like wet clothing. This wasn't revenge. This was remembering aloud. She doesn't know I already left the battlefield. She's shadowboxing, and I'm just watching the dust. Claire's message came quietly, like most truths do when they've waited long enough. She's out. Indefinite leave. No public statement yet. I was sitting by the cafe window again, the same one where Elsa had once passed me a napkin instead of an answer. Rain dotted the glass this time, not in storm, but in rhythm. Stockholm didn't scream even when things broke. It just softened the air around them. I didn't respond right away. I read the message once, twice. Then I tucked the phone into my coat pocket like it held something fragile. It did. Control addicts don't just break when they lose control. They unravel because they have no core beneath the mask. Claire's follow-up came faster. She tried to pitch a new initiative at the firm. Someone forwarded your file. HR told her to take time for personal clarity. That's corporate speak for step away before we make it official. I should have felt something sharper, gratification maybe. Vindication at least. But instead, I just stared at the cup in my hands. The steam curling up from it felt more real than anything Madison had said in the last 3 years. Another ping. Matt this time. Saw her profile go dark. No pic, no posts. That woman lived online, she's bleeding silence now. I didn't answer him either. A couple at the table across from me laughed. She touched his hand as he spoke. He paused, letting her voice carry the moment. There was something sacred in how they took turns. Like no one had to fight for space. Jack. I looked up. Elsa stood near the doorway, damp from outside but smiling. A quiet, uncertain smile. Not the kind people flash for the world, but the one you save for safe places. I waved her over. She slid into the chair opposite mine and didn't ask what was wrong. She never asked that. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I said, fingers circling the rim of my cup. I just feel lighter. Elsa tilted her head the way she did when listening without deciding. Not all victories are loud. Outside the city kept moving not because something had ended, but because something else had begun. I remembered the journal entry I'd written weeks ago in that cold hotel room. Maybe I've been slowly erased. No, I had been edited. And now I was writing myself back in. I pulled out my laptop, opened an email account I hadn't touched in months, the shared one, the one Madison had insisted we use for simplicity. It had always been anything but. I scrolled past the folders she created. Joint statements, holiday planning, my edits do not delete. My cursor hovered for a beat. Then I clicked settings. Then delete account. The prompt asked me to confirm. I didn't hesitate. The screen faded to white. I shut the laptop. No drama, no declaration. Just done. My phone buzzed again. Claire. I nearly ignored it until I saw the preview. There's one more message you should read. It's from Dad before he passed. I stared at it for a long time. The cafe suddenly felt too quiet, too still. I never got to say goodbye to my father, but maybe I can finally say hello to myself. The snow in Umeå didn't fall like in stories. It didn't blanket or swirl. It hovered light, half-committed, suspended in the air like a memory deciding whether to land. I sat on the cafe terrace wrapped in a borrowed wool coat, fingers curled around a paper cup that had long stopped steaming. My laptop was open, the cursor blinking beneath Claire's message. No greeting, no build-up, just an attachment and 4 words. You need this now. I hesitated before clicking, not because I feared what it might say, but because I knew what it might touch. There are places inside grief that never fully close. Some doors we keep locked not for safety, but for silence. The letter opened in a new tab. Scanned, handwritten, unmistakably his. Dad's penmanship had always been a little erratic, like he was in a hurry to say something before the thought escaped him. The ink had bled in places, maybe from moisture, maybe from time, but the words were intact. Jack. You're probably rolling your eyes at this, but I needed to write it anyway, in case I ever forget to say it out loud. I'm proud of you, not for what you do, but for how you carry things. Quietly, stubbornly. It reminds me of me, and that's both a blessing and a warning. You feel things deeper than you admit. That's not weakness. It's shape. It's what makes you different from men who mistake control for strength. You love with both hands open, and one day that'll feel dangerous to someone who doesn't know how to hold you back. Don't let anyone dim what they don't understand. You're already enough. No edits required. Love you, Dad. I don't remember crying. There was no cinematic gasp, no trembling hands. Just a stillness that dropped through me like a stone through clear water. I whispered his name like it was new again. Dad. All this time, I'd convinced myself I had grieved, that the funeral, the speeches, the rehearsed condolences had been closure. But I had never gotten this. I had never gotten him. And somewhere between those lines, you're already enough. No edits required. I realized what Madison had taken wasn't just my confidence, it was my context. She'd framed me as someone who needed constant correction like a draft she never intended to publish. But my father, he saw the final version before I did. I typed, slowly sent Claire a message. Thank you for saving this part of me. No follow-up, no emojis, just that. The sun had dipped behind the hills now. Faint green light began to unfurl across the sky. The aurora didn't dance not tonight. It drifted, subtle, earned, a quiet ceremony for no one in particular. I stayed seated, watched it unfold. A few minutes later, I heard boots on snow. Elsa. She didn't say a word. Just stood beside me, arms crossed, head tilted up at the sky. We watched in silence. Not the kind that demands to be broken, but the kind that heals. For the first time in a long time, I felt full. Not overflowing, just filled. With absence, with gratitude, with a softness I didn't have room for before. And somewhere between the stars and the silence I whispered, I'm not scared to be alone anymore. No one answered. No one needed to. A vibration in my pocket pulled me back to earth. I pulled out my phone. A new notification. Your flight is confirmed. Return to Denver, December 15th. I stared at the screen. Not with dread, not with excitement, just awareness. I was going back. But I wasn't returning the same man. She left me in Sweden as a joke. I returned from Sweden as a man who laughs last and means it. The plane landed with a sigh, not a roar. Denver's skyline peeked through the frosted window, familiar and foreign all at once. As the wheels touched down, I didn't feel triumphant or nostalgic. I felt centered. Madison wasn't there. No surprise. The terminal hummed with holiday chatter, travelers shuffling in boots too heavy for the season, overpacked bags bumping into legs, children half asleep on shoulders. I moved through it like a ghost, but not the haunted kind. The observing kind, the kind that's already done the haunting and moved on. Claire was waiting in short-term parking engine, running heater blasting. She stepped out and hugged me before I even reached the car. Her arms were tighter than they used to be. I wasn't sure if that was her or me changing. You didn't shave? She teased, sliding back into the driver's seat. I grew facial hair in Sweden, I replied. Very existential. She laughed. Real laughter. Not the polite kind people offer after a loss. This was earned. We drove through quiet streets, dusted in snow Christmas lights, blinking from porches with more ambition than design. Everything looked the same, but I didn't feel like I'd come back to reclaim anything. I'd returned to contribute. My apartment still smelled faintly of cedar. I'd forgotten I'd lit one of those fancy Swedish candles the night before I left. Maybe it lingered. Or maybe my mind was blending timelines. Either way, I unpacked slowly, deliberately. A sketchbook went on the desk, open to the drawing of the first bridge I ever designed, reimagined without critique. A smooth river beneath it. Clean lines. No approval required. A small flat stone joined it. Elsa had handed it to me on the last day, tucked into my coat pocket without a word. It had no inscription. Didn't need one. I sat down at my desk and opened the blog I hadn't published publicly in years. New post: what we leave and what we carry. I didn't write about Madison by name. Not anymore. She was no longer the center of the story, just a shadow in the margins. I wrote about silence, about the kind that harms and the kind that heals, about grief with no funeral, about bridges you build not to cross but to stay standing. I ended the post with this. Sometimes we survive not because we escape, but because we understand what was never ours to hold. Then I clicked publish. I stared at the screen for a long time, then closed the blog window. Not out of anger, not out of grief, just done. I opened a new document, untitled. The cursor blinked. Then I typed the title, The Silent Bridge. No outline, no pressure, just space. Claire came by the next morning. She brought coffee and a ridiculous pastry shaped like a squirrel. "You're glowing," she said, tossing me a look over the mug. "It's the beard," I said. But we both knew better. She left after lunch, and I sat by the window watching snow fall, like secrets finally being confessed. The kind that didn't stick but still changed the air. That afternoon, I checked the mail for the first time in weeks. Bills, flyers, one envelope, no return address. Just my name in looping handwriting I recognized immediately. Inside a postcard. No photo on the front. Just the blank white of snow. On the back, "You left something here." Or maybe you found it. Either way, you're welcome back. E. Every single view means a meal for someone in need. Just by watching this video, you're giving warmth, hope, and a full plate to those less fortunate. So watch now, share now, subscribe to the channel, and let's spread love together.